Oh, I can see it in the background kind of anyway of the reflection of that thing. Should work. Don't know what's going on with my neck, but she'll be right, mate.
Look at me. Yeah. Your button's got a loose thread. But... Oh well. There you go.
So which one are we talking about today?
The baby girl one?
Yeah, okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embodied Union podcast. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Charlie.
And today we're going to be doing a little bit of a movie recap, but really a talk about sexuality and repression in desire.
Yeah, so what do we watch?
We watched Baby Girl.
Baby Girl, it's Nicole Kidman. I don't know who the guy is.
Antonio Banderas was definitely a star in it. And, this is the first time we've ever spoken about a movie that we've watched. But I thought, how relevant.
It was good. I loved it. It left at the end, when we finished up, I felt a little bit weird because there is some darkness to it and I felt that it stirred something in me. But it was just so interesting.
Yeah, and I think too, just naming that we won't spoil anything in the movie, so just so you guys know.
I think we can give enough context.
Yeah. Well, just basically it's about a high-profile woman that's in a
CEO, boss babe, busy woman.
Yeah, who likes to be told what to do.
And not by her husband.
Yeah. And I think with that, it's there's some parts in it that, the exploration, not to mention the acting is really good in it, but I would say that, there's this real piece around sexuality and desire that is so often repressed in relationship. And, I know Charlotte and I talk a lot about not just spicing things up for the novelty's sake, but I think there is this line of, once there's safety, trust and respect in the relationship, how can you explore your eroticism as a way to really deepen the connection that you have with yourself and with your partner?
Yeah, I think a lot of the trap that long-term couples fall into is things can fall a little flat in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And we kind of just do what we know works. We kind of do what we've always done. I know that a lot of women come to work with me because they feel really unmet and dissatisfied and disconnected. Sex has become something that's a bit of a chore, a bit of an obligation, just got to do it to keep the peace, just going to appease him. And I think if there's a willingness to bring this conversation to the table without worrying about, he's going to take it so personally.
Yeah, if he wants this or this, then, what have we been doing? Has it not been enough? I definitely think...
There's lots of fear around why couples I think sex is taboo, just collectively anyway. So I think for some couples it's
yeah, I think
it's not comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's true. It's just collectively in our culture, there's been suppression. I think sex is quite natural and pretty normal, but it is that taboo, isn't it? It's it's been taught to us that somehow it's dirty or wrong, and this is where the edges lie, where there's real excitement in our eroticism. Can be a naughtiness to it or a wrongness to it or whatever that might be. That's kind of the edge, and it's very close to guilt, shame and fear is what I sort of see in this eroticism piece. It's I'm afraid to share myself with my partner and my desires, and then what about them judging me, or the feeling of judgment from my partner if I was to express that I had a desire for something that is very out of the ordinary, and how can we broach this subject? How can we be doing this in relationship? If you're in a long-term relationship and you feel like your intimacy has fallen a little flat, or there is potential desires that you have. It's how can we sit down with our partner and have this level of conversation, or maybe even watching that kind of movie, you know, to allow ourselves to sort of see it. I think too what I want to say is I really enjoyed the movie for the fact that it created the dominant and submission to be playful and not 100% correct all the time. Whereas
Well, we were saying how 50 Shades kind of really glamorizes and romanticizes this BDSM world, where really this movie was much more closer to reality of like, how are we doing this? Are we getting this right? Like, we're just trying this on. Oh, I feel a bit weird. Is this allowed? Which I know in my own experience playing in the world of BDSM, like there are when you first, like, it's like, what are we doing? We're just kind of making it up, and being courageous enough to like not take it too seriously and to try things on, to be okay to say, no, that actually wasn't it, or like, can we pivot? You know, like, I think just in sex in general, there's a lot of taking it too seriously. And like, I know for women who feel dissatisfied, they might want to like play in fantasy or have their man be more dominant, or like take the role of the submissive, or maybe they want to create a scene like, or set up something tantric, or give their man a lap dance. But that whole thing of like, oh, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't want to, like, I'm going to get it wrong, or I'm going to look silly, can also just be a block. So if we can not take it all too seriously, then we're much more willing to like try things on.
Yeah, try it on, you know, that piece in that of the willingness, the vulnerability that it takes to be the first person to step in and lean in. Like, I see this collectively, that women, in the literature that I've been reading, it is typically women that are coming to kink workshops, shibari sessions, that sort of thing, that they're wanting more, maybe not variety, but they're wanting to explore more. There's a bit more play and a bit more variety needed for a woman intellectually.
Well, I just think women have been pleasure starved for so many years, and now, even though sex still does feel a bit taboo, there is like, it has been brought to the conversation. Like, I think there is, with it being taboo, there's more openness, you know, and like, women are demanding more out of intimacy.
And rightly so.
And rightly so. Well, I feel really strongly about that, because I lost my virginity when I was 17, and I just had a really kind of average experience of intimacy until I was 30, and it was for no lack of trying to figure out like, what's wrong with me, like, what do I like. But some women don't think to demand more, and they're just kind of settling for, like, I don't know. There's a lot of mediocre happening in the bedroom because people are too scared to kind of look behind the curtain. Or like, it's the thing, is one thing to bring the conversation to your partner of what do we want to explore, but like, do you even know for yourself what you want to explore? Like, have you gotten to know your own fantasies and the dark side of your own eros and your own body and your arousal and your turn on? That's why we always teach or encourage self-pleasure as a solo practice, even when you're in relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that exploration in the movie in particular, it was kind of, you know, they were trying on certain things to see if it was okay or if they liked it or not. And I think that's so true. It's like, do you know? And if you don't know, can it be well, can we explore it at least before it is a no? I think that's really important too. Kind of reminds me of, you know, and it's probably a bad analogy, but just like when kids say no to broccoli before they've even tried it, or a no to food, it's just like no. And I so get that in the bedroom sometimes. It's like the head says no, but maybe it could be a yes, you know, just for the sake of exploration and to embody the no or not. Just to, as long as there's the safety, trust and respect, I think it's valid.
Well, there are times in our intimacy where I'm totally in my head, I'm like working, or I'm thinking about work, or I'm just like not really in my body, and you'll make a suggestion, like a sexual suggestion, and I'm like, no. And then it's like, oh, you're asking my head. You're not actually asking the right part of me, you know? And then when I catch myself just that automatic no, it's like, oh, wait a minute, like, give me a moment. And because there is safety, trust, and respect, I can like, am I curious about that? And I think because I also know that I had so many years of not saying no, sometimes my system just needs to say no. And then to see that you don't have a problem with that. And then when you're like, that's fine. I'm like, well, maybe. Maybe it's maybe.
And I think, yeah, I was reflecting to the movie as well where, you know, there's suggestions and things that seemed a bit outrageous and she kind of went with it. Like it wasn't even sexual things, you know, it was like when he ordered her something at the bar to drink. And
Well, it's not overtly sexual, but like it's very sexual.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think, you know, where are we as couples exploring this dynamic of energy that is not necessarily sexual, but as we've spoken in many other podcasts of like bringing that energy into the relationship around, you know, making powerful requests and, you know, taking the lead. Like as the masculine, it's like, how can we be not deterred by our partner's no? And also honoring the no, but also just how can we be solid in ourselves if that we get a no, it's not a rejection piece, it's just a no in that moment or a no in the, you know, for now, and it could actually change in half an hour. You know, there could be other intimacy practices. And I think I'm sitting here in this conversation kind of realizing too that I think for so many couples, they're not in the exploration of eroticism with each other. They're in the routine.
Yeah.
You know, so it's how can we even just bring a level of like level 1 practice of, you know, starting to do, you know, the eye contact, the yab yums, the building the trust, building the safety, you know, maybe leading something in the bedroom that feels really nice or feels really good for both people. And then it's a build up. It might not be, you know, something that you go and do straight away, like a big kink scene or a shibari night or something like that, but could be something that you start to plant the seed.
I think it's worth also just talking about the repressed fantasies and desires. Like a part of the movie is this woman, she's had this kink her whole life and has never been satisfied by her husband, and she's gone to therapy trying to like figure out what's wrong with her and is it my childhood, like what is it? And I think there are so many of us, and I consider myself included in this, where the vanilla or the thing that is like the, what do you want to, standard model of sex doesn't actually turn my excitement system on. And like I really resonated with the main character in like part of her kink is being turned on when something's at risk. So for her, it's just like getting caught out means losing her family and her job and everything. Like she's doing something naughty and that like something she shouldn't. And that actually is what's creating a lot of her turn on. And I have a very similar kink, I suppose. It's like we shouldn't be doing this. And so when you're in relationship, we were talking about it last night, it's like I have this, like, I shouldn't do that. And it's actually quite hard for Lindsay and I to create that energy because I don't see anything. There's nothing that you could bring to me that I'd be like, we shouldn't, because we're in a loving relationship. So it feels very like, there's the safety, the trust and respect. So there's the willingness to explore with each other. And so how to ignite that part of my system is something that we've had to be like, okay, well, how can we get curious like with that? How could we? Is it maybe something like in public or thinking outside the box of how I could meet this part of myself in a relationship where there just is so much willingness So there's not really anything that's like, well, we shouldn't.
Yeah, there's nothing really off the cards. I do remember some scenarios where we've had quite, like just intimate moments, and you told me afterwards, it's like, oh, you were thinking that like I was like the massage therapist or the someone
like
else.
I have a fantasy, like, and it's still like I'm in the moment with Lindsay and you are the person, but in that moment I'm imagining that you're actually my professional masseuse and you should not be doing these things. And like that is like one way that we bring fantasy and role play in, so I can have this part of me met. And it's just been really beautiful to be in relationship with someone who like doesn't yuck my yum or make me wrong. Like I can imagine in another relationship me saying, well, I shouldn't, and I'm imagining that you're my like masseuse, that could stir up some insecurity or threat, or is she going to cheat on me because that's naughty, da da da. And it's like, because you're so solid within yourself, we actually get to explore this.
Yeah.
And it just feels like very safe and very respectful.
Yeah, and I think deep down for me, like with my background, say with open relating and having those experiences, I think for me it's just like I never want to yuck someone's yum, because in that it's already so vulnerable. And this is like something I've had to learn with psychotherapy. It's like when you feel the most vulnerable and someone hurts you or takes advantage or rejects you in that moment. Yeah, like right at the moment.
Creates a closing just as you're opening.
Yeah, like if you hit rock bottom and then someone drop kicks you as well, it's just like doubly, triply, quadruply worse. And I think that it's just the last thing I want to be doing with my partner is yucking any of the yum, because that only closes more of the potential for pleasure, to get to know this erotic part of you, and for me too, because I want to have those amazing experiences with you. And I know for most people in relationship, we want to be the person to have the fantasy with our partner. Like we'd love to be able to meet that part. And I know deep down, most of us do want to meet that erotic part of our partner. It's just, what are the hurdles that we need to get over? And I think, this conversation alone is something to consider.
Yeah, and the thing that just was coming in then, it's just like we also work with couples where one person's kink is really outside of somebody else's boundary. And like that can be really difficult to navigate, when it's just like, I really want to play in this and the other person is just such a no to that. Like how to navigate that? Yeah.
Well, I think, like, let's say for example, I have an impact play, so spanking. Let's say for example, I'm really into spanking.
Like you spanking me or me spanking you?
Like me spanking you. And you're a baby and you don't like pain, right? So if that's the case, how can we still play in that energy? How can we find a medium that's still exciting, that still sounds exciting, feels exciting, and is exciting, that there's a compromise, that there's like an element of that? Or in those moments, is there actually a kink to receive it that we're not yet acknowledging? Because often what I see in this is that our desire to do to others is sometimes unconsciously what we want. We don't think it's that, but it very, very likely can be.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you can kind of think of?
I just think that I'm not suggesting that you cross your own boundaries to meet your partner's kink, but be mindful to not yuck their yum. If they're bringing something forward, if you're a no to it, can it be no and, or no but, and no, but how about we explore it in this way? How can we elicit that energy and like what you're wanting there, but in a way that does feel more like a yes and safe? I don't think that we should be crossing our boundaries to like we just need to be honoring our yes and our no. But again, if we have the safety, trust and respect, is there space to kind of play and see how you can meet it in a way that's like, yeah, and not taking it too seriously.
Yeah, definitely. Like I don't know when it was, we did like a spanking workshop, and that was really interesting. We did one.
Oh yeah, with Omrapani.
Yeah, and we did one in person a little bit at a shibari night, and it was like all the different ways that you can do impact play. You can use your hand in like 5 to 7 different ways.
Yeah.
You can use paddles. The person can have like a blanket or a sheet or something in between, so the person doing the impact play can still feel like they're impacting hard enough, or whatever it is that makes it the kink, sort of creates the kink. Then, you know, it's allowing yourselves to find the way in which to do it.
And I'll add as well, things often aren't what you imagine. Like we get a lot of people who look at our shibari content and are like, oh, like why are you into that rope pain stuff, and like with impact play, I had no idea how much I liked it, because as Lindsay said, I don't actually like pain. I don't want to be in pain like at all. And I didn't realize that impact play can be impactful. You can create impact with my body, but the way that you hold your hand can take all the pain out of it.
That's right.
So it's just like, yeah, when you think about being in pain, maybe you're like, no, why would I do that? But I don't like being in pain. But kink can, like, you don't have to have the pain element. Mm-hmm. Some people love pain. I do not. I am not one of them.
No.
But impact can come without it. Shibari for us is never painful.
No.
We are never creating like our shibari scenes to be the way people, I think, imagine what we're doing. Like it's actually so sensual and slow and meditative and light touch and stroking and tingling and like kisses. It's like really sweet. And people have this whole idea. And it's just like, yeah, you can. That's not what we're doing.
No. So, you know, thinking about this, if you're, you know, maybe you've already watched the movie, maybe you're thinking about
it's really
it.
Good.
Highly recommend. And also just starting to consider your own, you know, desire and really like championing your own eroticism.
And your partners.
Yes, please. Like more of that in relationship. Like people, I truly believe this, the people that are really into their eroticism and are getting to enjoy that in their relationship, like where else? Like if you're in a monogamous relationship, where else can you really set your eroticism free? That's where it is. So it's like allowing yourself that whole extra space to explore can open up worlds in other areas of your life around creativity, especially around play. Like I work with men mostly, and so many men are just not playing in their lives. They work, they provide, and they don't do a lot. And like, to me, this is an area that most men, I believe, want to do a great job in. So why not, you know, expand your knowledge, expand yourself in this area, you know? And if you're interested, this is the kind of work that Charlotte and I help couples explore as well. And so to me, it's like, if this is you and you are interested, then I would love to work with you and couples.
When you are pleasure starved, you have way less tolerance for your partner.
Oh my God,
When
yes.
you are full of pleasure and met, it's like the towel on the floor. It's like, who cares, you know? Like the woman who is pissy and moody and irritable all the time, a really great line of inquiry is like, is that woman actually pleasure starved? You know, it's like when you're feeling deeply met in this way, everything feels better. Like the relationship, you get to stay in like the love bubble, you know, and that's what helps you ride the waves of life and the ups and downs, but feeling together, you know, like after we have beautiful intimacy, it's just, we feel so smushy. And I want that for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what we do. This is the work that we do.
And if you don't already, I would highly recommend to follow Embodied Union on Instagram. I would recommend liking us and following us on Spotify and YouTube.
Yeah.
You can follow me at Lindsay B on Instagram.
I am Charlie S. Hannah. Instagram.
And go and watch Baby Girl.
Go watch Baby Girl, report back, and like have a conversation with your partner around what it brings up. If it creates any kind of contraction, if it creates like a possibility, maybe it does nothing for either of you, and that's also fine too.
Totally
you know,
fine.
you won't get that hour and a half of your life back, but it's a good movie.
Thank you. I love you, Critter.
I love you.